Ang aabutin lang namin dito, si 60 lang kami. Tapos maghahati pa kami. Well, one of the things he said was that yung lines of communication ng constabulary ay dapat magamit. And true enough, pagbalik namin dito, ang unang was yung we established a telephone brigade. No? Even yung duty driver, yung duty security niya, yung aming janitor dun sa opisina, we're manning the telephones at kung sino-sino mga tinatawagan. We were trying to find out ilan ba ang puwersang nasa amin.
Ito na nga, Bianca. Di ba sinabi ko kanina na ang revolusyon ay parang isang prutas? Well, ng mga oras na yun, nahinog na ito. Kinailangan na lang itong malaglag.
So anong ginawa ni Marcos?
Well, he also went on TV at gumawa ng sarili niyang press conference. Prinisenta ni Marcos ang ilang military officer na sinabi niyang kasangkot sa tangkang pag-agaw ng kapangyarihan. Idinitalya ng mga ito ang tangkang paglusob ng RAM sa Malacanang.
I, Major Saulito Arumin, O-6739 of the Philippine Army, wish to confess my participation in the plan to attack Malacanang Palace and its environs and capture President Marcos after midnight tonight. The leader of this plot is Colonel Greg Unasan, Chief of the MND Security Force.
Tuluyan namang pinabulaanan ni Enrile ang mga pahayag ni Marcos.
Anyway, sir, you have no knowledge about a supposed plot to enter Malacanang?
None whatsoever.
So you did not plot to enter Malacanang, stage a coup d'etat, or assassinate the president
Who,
or
me?
members of his family? Yeah.
Oh, why should I do that?
So Tito, sa halip na magputukan ng baril, naglaban yung dalawang panig sa media?
Precisely. At dito natin makikita kung gaano ka-importante ang media noong 1986 revolution na kailangan malaman muna ng tao kung anong nangyayari bago sila kumilos.
Yes, generally it was a battle for popular and sectoral support. It was a battle for support of forces that were in the middle, that were still fence-sitting. And it was waged that way. It's like a card game. There was a lot of bluffing.
So in other words, Tito, it came down to a question of credibility. Kung sino ba talaga ang higit na pinaniniwalaan ng mga tao?
That's right. And what's ironic is that although, as it turns out, Marcos was telling the truth, sira ng kanyang kredibilidad dahil sa paulit-ulit na pagsisinungaling niya noong nakaraan.
That is quite clear. In spite of any result of any constitutional convention, I have no intention of running for a third term. Don't you think that 2 terms is enough for any man?
So, galit na galit siguro si Marcos sa Radio Veritas.
Talaga. Kaya ilang beses niyang inutos na sirain ang mga transmitter nito.
Paano naman yung mga Amerikano, Tito Jim? How concerned were they sa mga pangyayari?
As a matter of fact, bago magtanghali ng araw na yon, umalis pabalik ng US si Philip Habib. Isang special envoy na ipinadala ni US President Ronald Reagan para alamin ang sitwasyon dito makaraan ng snap elections. Isang linggo na si Habib sa Pilipinas bago nag-break away sina Enrile at Ramos.
As Ambassador Habib left Manila and I was accompanying him, there was a feeling of tremendous uncertainty. No one knew how things were going to turn out.
Quite frankly, Washington couldn't think of what to do. We couldn't decide what policy it wanted to pursue. So Habib came essentially to gain time. Clearly, Reagan was not then prepared to cut Marcos out, cut him off.
Tito, hindi pa ba naging obvious kay President Reagan na nandaya si Marcos at ayaw na sa kanya ng taong bayan?
Well, maaring may kutob na siya na ganun na nga ang sitwasyon. Pero, dapat mong malaman na matagal nang kaibigan ng mga Marcos si Reagan at ang kanyang First Lady na si Nancy. So, ayaw ni na Reagan na basta na lang putulin ang kanilang pagsuporta kina Marcos.
Ganon? Si Cory Aquino naman, wala po siya rito sa Maynila ng mga oras na yan, di ba?
Teka lang, Bianca. Malalaman din natin mamaya kung ano ang naging kalagayan ni Cory. Sa susunod na bahagi ng ating programa, ang mga madramang pangyayari sa ikalawang araw ng 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution.
Kaya wag po kayong aalis. Nasa pangalawang araw na tayo, Tito Jim. Paano po ito nagsimula?
Tulad ng nakita natin kanina, both sides are already preparing their next moves. Even though the rebels were still on the defensive, paunti-unti nang nadagdagan ang kanilang puwersa.
Well, I had a ringside seat kasi kasama ko yung dad ko from the very first day onward when he was really the sole, I guess, negotiator for the Cory camp. The scene at Ramos's office was, nasa telepono siya. The whole time, nasa telepono siya. Nagtatabako. So, smoking, may tatawagin siya. Ang karamihan ng kinausap niya, he was talking to them in Ilocano. Kasi mga provincial commanders yun eh. And he was rallying support. At one point, I went into his inner office, which was really his desk, no? And I fell asleep. Paggising ko ng ganun, puro boots ang nasa paligid ko. Because I was sleeping on the floor under Ramos's desk. And I saw all boots. I looked up, it was all soldiers na. The office had become full of people overnight. Ang problema, yung Navy, which of course included the Marines, no? And yung Air Force. Because the Air Force could come and blow them up at any moment, no? And it wasn't sure where they stood.
Nang umaga din yun, nagpasya sina Enrile at Honasan na tumawid ng EDSA mula Camp Aguinaldo papuntang Camp Crame para ipagsanib ang kanilang puwersa sa mga tropa ni General Ramos.
For me, that was the most important part of EDSA. It's the first time I saw waves of people in the streets, and if you experience it, it's really very eerie. It's very intimidating to see 1 million people.
That was the first time na yung naramdaman kong tanggap ako ng tao. Because at that time, sinusuka na ng tao yung sundalo because of abuses sa martial law. Pero doon, ayakap ka ng tao, pinoprotektahan ka.
Samantala, naghanda namang umatake ang mga puwersa ni Marcos. Si General Josephus Ramas, commander ng Army, ang inatasan ni General Ver na mamuno sa tropang ito. Ang Philippine Marines na nasa ilalim ni General Artemio Tajar ang pinili naman ni Ramas para mangunang umatake sa mga rebelde.
Ang plano is to attack Camp Aguinaldo with 2 Marine battalions to be headed by Brigadier General Tajar. So the jump off that was agreed was 2 p.m. of Sunday.
If you could imagine, our head units were at Guadalupe at the time, and along EDSA up to the entrance of Global City now, along McKinley Road. That was how long our convoy then.
Grabe! Kayang-kaya palang durugin ng mga sundalo ni Marcos yung mga rebelde.
Definitely. At gustong ipakita ni Marcos na hawak pa rin niya ang overwhelming military force. Nang tanghaling iyon, lumabas ulit siya sa TV kasama ang ilang matataas na opisyal ng militar. But Marcos and his generals were about to realize that military might alone would no longer be enough to stop the rebellion.
So at 4 o'clock, I told General Ramos, there's something wrong, no? Because the column was not moving as we expected. Dapat, by this time, 4 o'clock, nandoon na sila sa Camp Aguinaldo. So, kumuha na naman ako ng isang helicopter. So, yung take off na yung helicopter, papuntang doon sa papuntang Ortigas, puno na yung EDSA. So, what I did was move towards the 2 Marine battalions that at that time nakita ko sa itaas talagang pinaligiran ng tao. So I told the pilot, you land. So approach kami. Nag-land kami sa empty space doon. So nag-ulti ka, pag-land ng helicopter, sisisigawan na ako ng mga tao, Kore, Kore. Tumating si General Tajar. Siyempre, general lang, colonel pa lang ako noon. So I saluted. Sir, sabi ko, medyo nahinto ka rito. Oo nga, tawag niya sa akin, boy eh. Boy kasi maraming tao, hindi magagalaw, ganyan-ganyan.